What is going on, YouTube? Today is day 999 of my self-improvement journey. It's crazy. Got one more day left, and it's the big day 1000. I'm actually putting this on. It's freezing out here. So today I'm going to talk about what my books are about. So, if you don't know, I'm an author, and one day I want to be a published author. I've written 3 finished books, and then I'm writing a 4th one right now. I've written over 1 million words in my life, which I started writing just over 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. It'll be 3 years on Christmas Eve, December 24th. So I've been writing for almost 3 years. So my first book, and also all of the books are in a series, so all 4 of them. So my first book, I'm gonna fix a lot of this because it doesn't really make sense, and you'll probably see why if you watch through the whole video. But my first book is about Liam and Tom. They are best friends, and they come home from school one day. They're both seniors as well. They both come home from school, and then this mysterious car pulls into the driveway, and after a little bit, a big giant 15 feet tall comes out, and he demands a sausage and a cocktail. So Liam runs into his house, gets it for him, and then the giant says you have to leave the country. They live in Minnesota. It says you have to leave the country. They don't listen, of course. They just think they're like dreaming or something. They go to bed, and then they go to school the next day, and they just got a date as well. It's spring, like April of 2017 is where it takes place. So basically they don't listen, but then they go to the movies the next day, and essentially they get bombarded by this giant again. This giant comes and almost kills them, and one of the guys in there is what is he? He's like a paramedic kind of, or he's a healer, and his name is Jack. He is special, not special like that, but like he's a special character, like that's important. He's one of the main characters of this series. So Jack, he originally, the book, like what happens is they go back to the school, and then that's where the big giant, his name is Anceloto, he comes and like almost kills them, and then their paramedics come, and then Liam and Tom tell the paramedics to bring them to Canada rather than the hospital in Minnesota, which it just doesn't make sense, because then they end up doing it because Jack's in that thing. But for what I'm probably planning, or what would make more sense, would be the movies. Jack brings them just directly, just himself, not as like a paramedic official, because he knows about the magic and the giants, because he used to live on the planet that they live on. And I'll get to that when I talk about the 3rd book. But anyways, they go to Canada, and then so apparently for some reason Anceloto can't go into Canada, which I don't know why. Like, I don't know, the 4th book or the 1st book just does not make sense. There's so many different things that just don't make sense. They say goodbye to Liam's parents, and then they go up, and I don't know where Tom's parents are. They're non-existent. And then they start going to Vancouver. That's where Anceloto tells them to go. And then what happens is, like when they were dropped off in Canada, they didn't have a car, so then they just kind of like walked for a little bit or something. And Liam, Jack, and Tom meet people who are also going to Vancouver, And what they do is they get a ride, basically. So these next 4 people are pretty important. David is the dad, Sarah is the mom, Sandra is the daughter, she's important, and Preston is the son. Sandra is like a year younger than Liam and Tom. She's 17 rather than like 18-ish or whatever. And then Preston is like 14 years old. So, and then obviously David and Sarah doesn't really matter. They're just the mom and dad. So they all meet, and then basically they're going to Vancouver, and Liam starts falling in love, whatever, with Sandra, and on their way to Vancouver. And on the flip side, he's having these dreams where he's on like a different planet, and he meets with this giant named Ifamar, a magician giant. This book is all over the place. And it's like, just talking about it makes me like really see how bad it is. But he's having these dreams where he's on this other planet with Ifamar, and they basically go inside a mountain to get like a ruby to help gain power to destroy Encelado. That has literally, like, I don't even know where that came from, honestly, when I first wrote that. But basically that's what they do. And then on Earth, in the real world or whatever, they have to go to the same mountain, because apparently, so Valorous is the name of the other planet, and then Earth, so Valorous and Earth. Valorous is supposed to be, originally it was just a replica of Earth, but I'm not doing that anymore. But they basically go under the same mountain, so it would be the same mountain because it's a replica, of course. On Earth, they go to the same mountain, but this time they get an emerald, so they have the two, which supposedly will stunt Encelado's powers somehow. I don't understand how, because like, I'm not keeping that in. Like, this whole first book is going to be massively developmentally edited, because I'm going to have to rewrite this book, and it's going to be bad. But basically, they go, and then on this mountain as well, they get trained by a fighting giant, Richard, and they basically get trained and for the fight, and somehow they get enough. And Liam, he has a magic in him, like, it's called the Faded. And this part is a little bit better. The Faded and then the Mist. So the Faded seems more like the good magic, and then the Mist is more like the bad magic. So they assume the Mist is on Encelado's side, and the Faded is on Liam's side. And this magic system is still prevalent in the fourth book. Just way more like deeply fleshed out. Anyways, they go to once they get to Vancouver, after like learning how to fight and stuff, there's like somewhere along the way giants come, and also apparently, allegedly, they while David's driving, he somehow falls into a river, and they split up on a beach. So Sandra goes with the boys, and then David, Sarah, and Sal and Preston, Sandra's family, they go the other way, because they think Sandra's like being an idiot, because she's like these magic boys or whatever, and like, they blame the magic for the reason why they fell into the river and stuff. So they think he's just weird and what. So they end up going their separate ways. But then eventually they get to Vancouver, and when they get to Vancouver, the fight's gonna be like very soon, and Sandra's parents come and get her, and then they start bringing her to their Californian house rather than back to Minnesota as a punishment. That's where the second book will take place. It makes no sense. The first and second book, but the second book, anyways, the Vancouver, the battle happens, the battle of Vancouver. There's other giants that come from Valorous. They teleport over and they fight it out. Liam punches Anslato halfway to oblivion, so he's not fully obliterated, but he's coming back, and he's somehow getting stronger after the Battle of Vancouver. But yeah, and then that's basically the end of the first book. The first book is all over the place. A lot of it does not make any logical sense, and even if I refined it, it's still just it would just fall apart. It just doesn't make any sense. It's too random. It just doesn't make any sense. So I'm gonna rewrite the book to still have all of these characters, but then also put them on, or put them on Valorous probably, rather than keep them on Earth, because like I don't know why I picked Vancouver. I just picked Vancouver for no reason. It doesn't make sense. Tom's parents, they're just nowhere to be found. They don't care that he's leaving. They just fall in a river. Makes total sense. You know, the giants just waiting for them in the mountains, the emerald, the ruby. It doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it does to you, but it doesn't. The second book, Sandra and Preston, they're in their Californian house, and then they basically travel across the country. A lot of even more worse random things happen that I'm not going to talk about, because the second book will be massively edited, and it'll basically be put into my third book as interludes. So the second book is basically getting cut out, and it'll be only 3 books by the end of the series, so instead of 4 books. So the third book takes place right after the Battle of Vancouver. Jack and Ifamar. So Jack is the healer guy, Ifamar is the magician, also a healer. But he's a giant. So Ifamar is a giant, and Slaugh's not a giant. Some are good, some are bad, obviously. So they teleport over to Valorous right away, and basically they experience this dream together where they have to, from the Mist, so the Mist and the Faded, so these are the 2 magic spirits and souls. So one's a spirit, one's a soul, and basically they have to go across Valorous and find 4 different elemental sigil pieces. So the aqua pearls that are in the ocean. Then they go into the mountains to find the Zephyr feather, and then they go into a cave. They have to go to a cave to find a Terra Stone, and then they have to go to a volcano to find Ember Crystals. So basically, each of these 4 are a certain emotion. So the Aqua Pearls are confidence, the Zephyr Feather is like tranquility, like calmness, the Terra Stone is resilience and kind of like power, and then the last one, the Ember Crystal, is like anger. And so basically all 4 of these pieces were made from 4 different people in the past, and 2 of them, so the Zephyr Feather was made by the Faded, which is also Ellie. There's a lot of names. Stay with me here. Ellie, and this obviously is not all info dumped right on the first page. It is slowly, over the course of 400,000+ words, almost 440,000 words, it is all laid out. So Ellie, the Faded, and then Vwain, the Mist. So Vwain made the Ember Crystal, Ellie made the Zephyr Feather, and then the other 2, when giants first became a species, there was the big three giants: Vianen, Resilv, and Arcanum. So Arcanum and Vianen were like fighters, they're warriors on the battlefield, but Vianen was like the bigger one. He's like the leader. Arcanum's just kind of like, his second or his assistant, or whatever you want to call it, but they're brothers as well. Resilv's like more like the art guy, the painter, the traveler, whatever you want to call it. And so basically, the two, so we're not talking about Resilv, just the two, they essentially die on the battlefield as an act. There's a war that kind of goes on. They die as an act because that's what Ellie and Vwain, the Fated and the Mist, want them to do. But one of them is punished to die, but while one of them is punished to live eternally, immortally. And so Vianen dies right there. Arcanum, he lives forever though. And so Vianen is the Aqua Pearls, and then Arcanum is the Terra Stone. And then Arcanum changes his name to Callium, and essentially all four of these sigil pieces come together and they create the new magic. So there's old magic and then there's new magic, but the new magic won't really be in effect for another like 15,000 years. And so 15,000 years later, eventually, or 30,000 or whatever the number was, Iphamar, the magic giant, and giants live probably, I'll say on average, like 10,000 years. Iphamar will end up being like 15,000 years old, so he's obviously on the older side. I'm still kind of unsure exactly how old I'll make most giants, because it's obviously a lot harder for us humans, because we only live to like 100, and obviously that's a stretch. But yeah, so it's hard for human brains to like really think of 10,000 years. Like, that's a long time. So yeah, anyways, Iphamar, he's like just a little boy or whatever, and little boy is like 300 years old. So there's this council of elders, and the council of elders, basically, there's 5 of them, and there's so many things in this book. There's so much lore and stuff, it's kind of crazy. So I don't really need to go in depth, and honestly I don't even remember their names that much. I could probably remember them, but all 5 of them are in this. They know magic, but it's more the old magic. And essentially Iphamar, as this boy, he somehow just learns like a trick to like move something with his mind or something like that, and he gets recognized by everyone and the council of elders, and eventually he teams up with them, and there's like a whole story about it, of his past, kind of like teaming up with them, the 5, and like pursuing magic more in of like a general rather than like a specific area. Like, for example, one of the giants is like, he lives in the caves and he's like special with cave stuff. So rather than like kind of like focusing on just one thing, he's focused on more like just general like healing or moving things with your mind, or whatever, I don't know. And so that's Iphamar's past. And on their journey to get all 4 of the sigil pieces, Iphamar talks to Jack about all 4 of these things. And then for Jack also talks about his past. He shares his past as a story. So Jack's past is basically, when he was 5 years old, he was abused by his parents, like a lot. And this was on Earth. And then he basically, one winter, 5 years old, he goes into an alleyway. He just runs away from home. And after a couple days, a giant appears out of nowhere. His name is Marcus. and he comes and takes Jack, and he brings him back to Valorous. And then there, Jack quickly finds that he falls in love with magic. He befriends one of the giants named William. He's kind of like a trickster guy. Marcus doesn't really like him, but eventually they, come to terms. And the librarian as well, Felix. And Jack kind of grows up here. There's not really much of like the story of him growing up. It's mostly just like that time period where he's like 5 and he kind of goes there. And then the last like month or so before he says he'll never go again. So basically Felix dies because he's really old, the librarian. And then Marcus and William say, so Jack wants to go find Ifamar, the magician giant, basically the best magician modern day. And essentially Marcus and William laugh at him. They say, no, you can't do that, whatever. And like all the emotions kind of get to Jack. And when he turns 18, he wants to travel the world to find Ifamar, Valorous, because Ifamar at that time, he was just in hiding basically, like learning his own magic and stuff. And so Jack ends up leaving Valorous, saying he'll never come back again. And yeah, that's why he's back on Earth as like a paramedic, so. And then that story, both their pasts kind of like extend. There's way more than just what I've said, but those are the main points, and they last the whole story. They're not just, said right away. And then essentially what happens after they're done with that at the volcanoes, they teleport back to the Valorian camp, which is where like Marcus and the giants are, and they kind of like train and stuff there. And they get there, there's fireballs coming down, and they have to get this book from the library that will help them like figure out how to like use the new magic, how to combine the sigil pieces. And so essentially they run to the library while fireballs are coming down, and the fireballs are sent by Anslato, the evil giant. So basically they have to go really quick. They get the book, and then they teleport back to Earth, and Marcus and Tom. So Tom is Liam's best friend, like I said. Tom, he ended up going, so after the Battle of Vancouver, he ended up going to the Valorian camp to train with Marcus and the Giants. And then Liam, he stayed home to finish graduating, and there's like a whole history with him as well. Oh my god, this video, I was trying to do it under 20 minutes, and it's not happening. So essentially, that's about the end of the third book. Eventually, actually, Jack and Ifamar, they go to Liam's graduation, and they like bombard it, and that's the end of the book. So the fourth book, okay, so that's where Jack and Ifamar go after the Battle of Vancouver. Tom, he goes with Marcus to the Valorian camp to train. Liam, he goes with Richard, the fighting giant. He goes back to his house. He starts preparing more for when Anslato will come back in like a month or two. And so now we're kind of at the we're at the beginning of May. So the beginning of May. And essentially, Liam and Richard, he starts learning how to fight. And the reason why he still wants to graduate is because his dad died a year ago. And his dad, like the last interaction they had was a pretty bad one. His dad was like, why aren't you doing anything with your life or whatever? You gotta like do something with your life. And that was the last interaction before a car accident. And so Liam, he decided after that he's gonna do something with his life. He's gonna focus on school. And so that's why he still wants to graduate, because he has that kind of identity still a little bit. And so he feels kind of like a nobody just pursuing this magic, because like obviously it's not a profession or whatever. But so he kind of struggles with that. And but he gets better at fighting. He starts learning magic more. And yeah, And then Sandra eventually comes back from the California. Preston is gone though. He magically disappeared, and that's a whole different thing. I don't know if that'll stay in or not, but I'm not even gonna worry about talking about that. Sandra eventually comes back, and things happen, and it's like a whole mess, honestly. But eventually, basically, they just start getting better, and then eventually Jack and Ifamar come back to Earth, and then eventually they figure out that they can't teleport back to Valoris, so they're kind of stuck on Earth, and they have to build their own portal with magic. And so they prepare physically, mentally, all this stuff. They attempt 3 times, and only on the 3rd time does the portal finally work. They finally get to the portal, and they finally make the portal, and all of them go through. So Jack, Ifamar, Liam, and Sandra. They say goodbye to Liam's parents and Sandra's parents, who Sandra's parents are finally like starting to realize, okay, I think she likes him, So yeah, they go back to Valoris, and on Valoris, essentially, so Tom was training with Marcus, and like helping and kind of becoming a leader almost. And after the fireballs, he has to take them to. So Marcus ends up being trapped in the Valorian camp, which like about 100 giants get trapped. Many, like thousands of giants die, but like 200 giants end up escaping with Tom. Tom is kind of their leader. He brings them to a bunker of Valorian. So Valorian is like a little rock monster kind of thing. They live with the giants. It's kind of like a smaller than a human. And so basically they go to a bunker where the Valorians are already located. Like they already left before the fireballs even started somehow. They just kind of knew. So it takes them a while to get there, like 2 weeks or so. But this mysterious girl giant, there's no girl giants, this is the only one. Her name is Lily. She appears out of nowhere, and essentially Tom, so Lily is very good with magic, even though she's young. She's only 300 years old. That's young for a giant. So she basically very, very good with magic, and her parents, Ellie and Vwain, essentially want her to go experience the world, because she's just been living in Oblivion, which Oblivion, I've not explained this yet, is just basically space. Just nothing. It's just black. Nothing, And so essentially they push her to go, and she wants to experience the world as well, so she does with Tom. And then also Sophia is one of the other girls, and she's human. So Sophia, oh my god, this is gonna take forever. I'm almost done, don't worry. So Sophia was found in the 3rd book. So when Jack and Ifamar were traveling Valoris, like before they even started, they found a hut, and it was Enceladus' hut, and in the basement was Sophia. So Sophia was basically almost starved to death for like a month. She had very minimal food and very minimal water. But they found her, they brought her back to the Valorian camp, and she, got back to things. And then when the fireballs came, she went with Tom, and then so Tom, Lily, and Sophia are the 3 that kind of go together, and then all the other giants. But they eventually figure out that assassins are living among them, and they want to kill Lily because she's just too powerful. They want to kill Tom and Sophia because they're all too powerful. And then back at the Valorian camp, Marcus and all the other giants they have to, so there's acolytes, Enceladus acolytes, which are basically the bad guys. So there's 10 of them, and they basically put the 100 giants into slavery to build Enceladus' kingdom, this big palace, this gazebo, and then like towers around it that have interconnected like bridges, and it's they basically slave away. But Marcus, he kind of slowly turns against his own men. Not actually. He pretends to get onto the Acolyte side, and this is because they're under a spell, so they just won't believe anything Marcus truly, like, they won't truly believe anything Marcus says, because they're under the spell. And so Marcus goes onto the bad side, essentially, and he starts learning the new magic. Okay, so he starts learning this new magic, and then on the other side, Tom and Lily and Sophia, they all go to this bunker. They eventually find the bunker, and they try and start learning new magic, but it doesn't really work. The assassins, they try to like see how to learn the new magic from the assassins, because they know how to, like, the new magic. You can teleport, you can mind read, you can what's another one? Become invisible. Those are the big three with the new magic. The normal, with like the old magic, you can just heal, and there's obviously degrees to this. There's levels, which it's more a soft magic system than a hard magic system, so it's not like it's not super strict. You can mainly heal and then move things with your mind a little bit. I think it's very, like, I don't know exactly what you can do and stuff, but anyways, they start learning new magic, but it doesn't really get anywhere, because eventually the assassins, they all like the bunker, so it's underground, the bunker collapses, and Lily, she has to, like, hold it up with the magic. So Lily and Sophia, they hold it up with magic, so that the giants can, like, escape, I guess, further underground, but where it's a little bit safer, so they don't, get like 20 feet of dirt and stone and rubble just falls on them. So essentially they escape, and this is kind of where I'm at right now. I mean, not exactly, because so Jack, Ifamar, Liam, and Sandra, they all teleport back to Valorous, and then Ellie, she meets up with them, and she brings them all the way to the bunker. And so at the bunker, all of them, like, meet up and stuff. They get the giants, and then they find out that there's tunnels down below that'll lead to the Valorian camp. And the tunnels, they were already described back in the 3rd book. I just never talked about them until now. So they go to the tunnels, they go to the Valorian camp, and essentially they're gonna ambush the Valorian camp and try and ambush Encelado, but it won't work. That's basically where I'm at right now in the writing process. The whole actual war still has yet to come, but it's gonna be pretty big. I'm not gonna say the rest, because, like, people die, like, pretty important people die, and feelings get hurt. Tom and Lily, they started falling for each other, but they just never said anything, and they will not have a chance to say anything, because one of them will die. I just kind of spoiled it, but, whatever. So yeah, but that's what my books are about. So yeah, if you have any questions, ask them down below, because honestly, the first book is going to be it's going to be rewritten, because it makes no sense. The 3rd book and the 4th book, in my opinion, make more sense. I'm definitely going to shorten them, because they're just way too long. But yeah, that's it for my series. So that's it for day 999, my Summer journey. Today's my first day. It's my first day of senior year, so I'm gonna be going to school soon. It's gonna be crazy, but tomorrow's day 1000, and I'll explain what I'm gonna be doing for, like, self-improvement, for YouTube, for just things in general. So yeah, anyways, I hope you guys have a great day, and don't forget to follow your dreams. Goodbye.